Days ago, I started talking about the 6 harmonies of life in community, and shared a little story about the lion and the tiger who got into a terrible fight over something silly. Today, I want to tell another little bit of a story because it's quite inspiring. We've heard this in many different contexts, but it's the framework really for thinking about the 6 harmonies of living in community. So the 6 harmonies, again, just to repeat, which we'll do every time, are to be harmonious physically, to be harmonious verbally, to be harmonious mentally, to be harmonious in the precepts that we keep, to be harmonious in the views that we hold, and to be harmonious in how we share the requisites that we receive. Right? So these are all the 6 ways that contribute to harmony in the community. So there's a beautiful story of a conversation that the Buddha had with one of his monastic disciples, Anuruddha. And it seems that there are different places where this story comes out, because one of the little researches I did was one of the Theravada bhikkhu was giving a commentary on this, and his background on the story was that the Buddha was quite frustrated, in fact, or maybe frustrated isn't the quite right word for a Buddha, but was experiencing that there was a lot of disharmony in the Sangha, to the point that he really just kind of stopped, left for a little while, and let the monks carry on, because the Buddha's teaching wasn't having much effect. So then, if you have that as the context, when he comes upon Anuruddha, who is living in very close harmony with his 2 or 3 monastic buddies that are living together, and the Buddha sees that they are really doing well together, he asks Anuruddha, what is it that lets you be able to live together in harmony, with mutual appreciation and agreeability like milk and water mixed, regarding each other with eyes of love? Just that thought, regarding each other with eyes of love, not hostility, not blame, not aversion, not fear, regarding each other with eyes of love. And so Anuruddha replies, I think what a blessing it is. What a great blessing that I am living with such companions in the holy life. I maintain physical acts of love towards these venerable ones both openly and privately. I maintain verbal acts of love towards them both openly and privately. I maintain mental acts of love towards them both openly and privately. I consider, why should I not set aside what I wish to do and do what these venerables wish to do? Then I set aside what I wish to do, and I do what these venerables wish to do. We are different in body, but we are one in mind. So there's a lot in this little short paragraph. I maintain physical acts of love towards those venerables, both openly and privately. So this first of the 6 harmonies is to be harmonious physically. So at the ground, living harmoniously physically is taking care of the well-being of each other. Not harming each other. So at a really gross, crass level, we aren't, as some of our bhikshuni precepts say, dragging the bhikshuni out of our room and putting her on the street, for example. We're to refrain from that. So physically harming, physically responding with harm to one another is the opposite of this. As Venerable says, we don't hit them, beat them up, or do anything that would make them suffer physically. Now, I don't think we've actually come close to that. In our minds, maybe once in a while, who knows? But that's not really the issue. But the next step is then what's the opposite of not beating up each other? We care for each other physically, in a really physical way. So the first one, and we have precepts about this too, is to care for one another if you're ill. So to really take care that people get fed when they're ill, to take care that people get the medicines they need when they get ill. Sometimes it is not so convenient. Sometimes we really don't want to schlep all the way over to Gotami House. It's so far away. To take a plate of food before I have to sit down and eat. But somebody does. usually. And if we all forget, somebody eventually will remember. But to have a mind that really is caring for, what does this person who's not well need? And of course, as we have more and more elderly community members, this is going to become even more critical that we remember this. But there are other ways too that I was thinking about taking care of one another physically, that with a mind of love is different from taking care of each other with resentment. For example, washing out the soy milk container is not my favorite thing to do. Absolutely. And it's apparently not a lot of people's not favorite thing to do, because that little collection of soy milk containers with just this little bit left in the bottom with a new one open happens from time to time, less frequently than it used to. But to care for one another physically, if I go to that soy milk container, use the last drop, and with a mind that says how fortunate I am to be able to wash out this container for the benefit of the whole community and for the benefit of the whole planet. We're going to recycle this aseptic container. That's actually caring for one another in a very clear and physical way. When we're doing gardening for the community, or sometimes, you get to the chores in the bathroom, it's like the first thought is, who's supposed to be cleaning this toilet? It's a mess. The person who's thinking, I think, with this kind of caring for each other physically, just takes the toilet brush, dumps in a little powder, and does it. No thought, no care. It's like lovingly caring for the whole community. So it takes us away from the mind that's like, this is my chore, or my section, or my job, and who's not doing this, and who should be doing that, and instead holds us all together as an entire community, and I'm including all our guests and everybody that comes and goes here, everybody who has a relationship with the Abbey, actually, that we contribute equally in caring for the property, in caring for each other's property, and in that way we really physically support one another with a mind of love. Venerable Children has shared this before, and I have cited it many times as an inspiration to me, not to say that I always practice it, let's not claim that, but she once told the story of being in a group house somewhere as a guest, and dishes had piled up in the sink, and she was washing the dishes of all the people who were residents in that guest house. And she said she could do it with a mind that's thinking, I am purifying all the times that I lived in community and washed people's dishes with anger and resentment, because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. But she had come to her own thought training enough to be able, in this situation, many years after her ordination, to be able to just gently wash those dishes for everybody without complaining and not. To me, that's a real example of living together harmoniously, physically. And it brings that quality of, I don't know, there's something quite inspiring to me about this Anaruta story of looking at each other with eyes of love. And that kind of care. We can fold the laundry with eyes of love. That, oh, I'm folding and caring for the Sangha's laundry. How fortunate I am to be able to do this. We have that in our prayer and preparing food for the community. How fortunate we are to be able to prepare and cook this food for the Dharma practitioners. So it's, I think it's a lovely practice, and it's something to kind of think about in terms of creating harmony physically as we live together in community and support one another to share our Dharma practice. Because what do we all have in common? That's our aspiration, is to work for the benefit of living beings and to cultivate our own minds so that we really are of some benefit. So that's living together harmoniously physically.